The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Welcome to another episode of Tobin Tonight. I am your host, Tobin, and tonight we welcome a special guest. They're from Newfoundland, because I know that a lot of you were saying, where's the Newfoundland content? This is Rogers TV Newfoundland. Why don't you interview Newfoundlanders? And to those people, I say, leave me alone, Mom. I'm doing my best. God. But with that being said, this person that we have on this week has had a street named after her, an arena named after her, and a highway named after her. She also has a gold medal, a silver medal, and a bronze medal in the Olympics. And she's only 27. Now you think that would be enough for her, but no. Now she wants to come after my job of being in media, and that's what she's doing in school right now, is media studies. So to her, I say, congratulations. She told me that I have 3 or 4 years left before she comes after me, and then this is no longer my show. Roger's going to give her own show, and it's all going to be about her and her story, and it sounds a little bit bitter, doesn't it? It does sound a little bit bitter. At least she gave me the heads up. But she accomplished more at 27 than what I have at 27, and I'm told, like, she'd be happy about that. And I try. Believe me, I'm trying. But this week's guest has accomplished a lot in the sport of figure skating, which is a good time to bring up our sponsor. Just good old-fashioned General Skates. Doesn't have to be a name brand, just skates. So, this week's guest is Kaetlyn Osmond, and we hope you enjoy it. But before we do the intro music, Kaetlyn, if you're out there listening, or anyone that's out there listening, if Kaetlyn's coming for my job, or my career, sorry, I'm going for her career. Starting in February, I'm going to learn how to figure skate, and I will become a gold medalist, silver medalist, and a bronze medalist. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know you have to go for gold, but I will try my best to aim for a bronze and then try for silver. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, play the intro music and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the podcast, Tobin Tonight. This is your first time on. Now, obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about swimming because that's what you know. I'm talking about swimming because we know what people know what she's for here. Like the posters in the background. Like clearly, does that look like a swimming outfit? No, not at all. Kaetlyn, for the time being, for as much as I can do this now, because I know you have the Order of Newfoundland, you got things named after you in your hometown, highway, an arena, a street, got gold medals, silver medals, bronze. Like, listen, there's a lot of things you've accomplished at 27. I'm as someone at 31, I just want to be 27. I don't care about the rest of it. But for as much as I can do this for now, here's something that I have that you don't, but you will soon have, and this is why I get to use it right now for you.
You've got 3.5 years still ahead of me. I got
a
lot to do.
This says communications, and they changed it now to media studies. And even Carlton has sent me emails like, we can change it to media studies. I'm like, that would be great. They're like, but we're going to charge you. I'm like, you know what? It's antique. I'm going to keep the antique. I'll keep it communications. Now, we're going to go into the skating background because I know that's what people want. But this is my show. I get to determine where we start. So as a media guy myself, I want to ask you, what brought you into the field of media and why are you taking my job? Come on, leave something for me.
I've always enjoyed the idea of media, mainly since I was 16. I started getting interviewed more and more myself, mostly on a national level, but then I started traveling internationally, so then I got to get a lot of practice with it. But it was fun on my side of it because I got to curate my own story and learn how to incorporate that in front of the journalists and all the extra media people that were talking about me. And it was sometimes really beneficial because, well, I got to get my story out, but then other times it worked not in my favor, where I would read an article and be angry because that's what they projected of me, or that's what they viewed in what I did. So I think the part of me that wanted to go into media was to be able to allow people to curate their own stories, and for me just providing the voice to help them get there. And from then on, it kind of spiraled from there.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm kind of curious, because when you mean like they kind of either twist, like, are you saying like they kind of twisted the words that you said, or like they read something that you did and they said, okay, this is how we want to perceive it?
Kind of.
Okay.
Sometimes it would be on something that I said, and I was like, that is what I said, but not in the context
Yeah.
that I said it. Or it would be another. I didn't actually speak to them, but they are telling the story about what I did that day.
Okay.
And sometimes what goes through an athlete's head isn't necessarily what's like shown on the outside.
Yeah.
So to hear stories told of like, oh, it just wasn't her day, and I was like, yeah, but you don't know how much of an injury I was struggling with that day.
Yeah.
I just wish more people got to hear about that side of things, not just the injuries, because, well, that was another thing that annoyed me about the media, is that they really honed in on every single injury I had, and I'm like, can we just move on from there, please? But it wasn't just the injuries, but like just giving a chance to the athlete to not either make an excuse for what they did that day, but just to be able to tell their own version of what happened that day.
Yeah, I feel like for you and for other athletes that are going through, say, like media training or like trying to be in the media, like you know what, I could play like the devil's advocate of why certain media do that. Like, listen, I'm not one that likes to like write an article without actually speaking to someone about it, but there are certain times that I guess, especially in the world that we live in with now with PR, that if you want to talk to Steph Curry about an injury, you know there's a PR person be like, all right, don't tell them everything about the injury. Here's your basic status quo. And listen, like, you know, from being Canadian, if you go to a hockey player, there are plenty of times where it's like you're down 3-2 or you're up 4-1. We just got to get pucks in deep. It's like, oh, can you tell us anything about Draisaitl's injury? Doctors are looking at him. It's like, we figured doctors were looking at him. Like, we didn't want like Timmy looking at him.
I completely agree with that. And I know that for a fact. That's what I did. I had a full back injury my entire last year competing. Nobody knew about it.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't
mainly
want
because
everyone to know that.
I didn't want to give myself the excuse even. It wasn't had anything to do with the media. It had nothing to do with anybody else watching me. I did not care if they knew I had an injury or not. I couldn't let myself fall back into the excuse that I had an injury and that's why I couldn't perform. So I was like, if I don't give myself the excuse, then if I skate bad and then give out the excuse, then it's just going to look really bad. So I was like, I'll just make sure I have good performances and then we'll just deal with the injury later.
Yeah, it's like, as long as you're not walking into the arena like with a cane and like hunched over, and they'll be like, she's supposed to perform tonight. What's going on there? Is like, did she just come from like a meet and greet and was she sitting too long? Like,
yeah, who knows?
At 27 now, how's your back feel?
Not great.
Oh, okay.
If this is how a regular 27-year-old's back feels, I'm sorry for everybody.
Yeah.
But thankfully I have treatment. I still go for massages. I still get a little bit of physio. So thankfully that's still in my cards. But yeah, I was always told that your body will love you until you're retired and you don't actually put all your effort into making sure your body's feeling 100% anymore.
You're saying that at 27. I'm like 31, and there's days I'll get up and I'm like, man, it's like, I know I slept right, but like, why does this?
Yeah.
And then there's a kid that slept upside down with his foot in his mouth, and he's like, I'm ready to take on the day. I'm just like, how are you ready to take on the day? What day do you have planned for yourself? It's like, just going out and playing some ball hockey. I'd be like, but you literally slept upside down. I don't get it. I'm so mad. I'm so furious.
Yeah, it's funny that happens.
I want to ask you, like, because you started skating relatively like young in my mind. Now, people could say like,
no,
hey,
I was young.
Yeah. It's like I believe it's like 3 years old.
I actually put skates on for the first time at 18 months. I started the Can Skate program when I was 3. So I actually started taking figure skating lessons at 3, but I started skating when I was 2.
Okay. Is there a little bit of resentment to your parents for putting you in so young? No.
Not at all.
They're just at home. It's like, I hope she doesn't say no to that. Like,
They didn't actually put me in it originally. My sister was a skater and she's 3 years older, so she was at the rink all the time and I was born while she was already started skating. So I was at the rink every day and always watching her skate because they couldn't exactly leave me at home. Um, well, they could have, but I don't think that would
Yeah,
have gone very well
yeah,
with a lot
yeah.
of people. So I was at the rink every day, and I was really good friends with my sister, even as a well, at that I was only two, so I
Yeah.
don't know how good friends you can be when you're two. But my sister and I are still really good friends, and I wanted to be like her, so it was my choice at 2 to go onto the ice because I was like, my sister can do it, I want to.
Yeah. Just now looking back, is your sister like, it's like, is she like me, where she's kind of like, look at everything she's achieved? Like, no, I don't, like, F you.
No, actually, my sister was, in my opinion, by far the better skater of the two of us.
Okay.
Um, she had a lot of talent that allowed me to just kind of fly under the radar for so long. And then her and I, like, my coach Ravi, he taught both of us for a while, and he made fun of us all the time that we didn't fight ever. We always got along. He'd take us in lessons together, and we'd be like, "Oh, that was cool. She tried it. I'm gonna try it." Um, so then when it got to the point that her and I actually competed against each other because I caught up,
Yeah.
I ended up beating her that year. She was having a little bit of a rough year and was already in the process of debating on if she wanted to skate, like continue skating or not. So I finally I beat her, and she just used that as a, you know what, I'm good. She's here now. I'll leave it. But then she became my like biggest supporter. She showed up to every nationals after that, and um, she was always there to support and help me with my dog when I had to travel away. And um, yeah, so I don't think she had any resentment. I know that she always just wanted to wear a Canada jacket and travel internationally even once,
Yeah.
and she never had that opportunity. So I
Yeah.
think in that spot where I have my Canada jacket, she was like, well, that's not fair. But
Yeah.
at the same time, she knew, she understood it probably more than anyone.
I believe it was after the 2014 Olympics that you got injured. But
Hmm.
tell me a little bit about that process, because I know we're talking about like another key aspect that people really want to talk about with athletes or just people in general is the whole mental health awareness. And I don't think that gets really brought up enough with athletes, because once an athlete retires, once an injury happens, if they're no longer in the spotlight, you're kind of like, whatever happened to them? Oh, okay, well, who cares? It's like, well, you kind of should, because at the end of the day, it's still a person. This was what their career choice, same as you going to an 8 to 5 job. If you couldn't do the 8 to 5 job anymore, yeah, it's not as big of an audience that gives. People still probably are like, you should probably check in on them. So tell me a little bit about the injury and how you kind of recovered it, and like the whole, like the meats and potatoes of everything in between.
Yeah, that was a big question.
I know it's
uh,
very wordy.
you're making me think a little bit, but it's okay. I just came from school and my brain's activated. We're ready to go.
Good.
Um, my Yeah, I believe mental health wasn't talked about a lot, especially at the time that I was going through my injury and when I actually started getting help for my mental health. Um, it is being talked about more now, which is great. Um, and I love to hear more conversations around the mental health side of generalized life, and let alone sport on top of that. And then, as you said, the transition out of competitive sport, and then still remembering that these people exist, that they weren't just an object to watch for a little while, and that they're actually a real human behind all of it. Um, and I've really done a lot of work on myself in the past, well, pretty much since that injury back in 2014, and then I'm still continuously working with a psychologist. So I'm a big firm believer of mental health. But yeah, with that injury, I quit in my own brain. I told my mom that if I got injured one more time, that I was done. And next thing I know, I was lying in a hospital bed with a broken foot. So it was just really convenient timing, I think. Um, and in my head, I did quit. I did not want to get back on the ice, and I was just a little too scared to tell my coach that, because in my brain at that point, I knew that if I told him, that it was going to be real. And then if it was real, if I didn't get back on the ice, then I gave up because I got injured, and I took the easy route out. And I, as a person, couldn't do that. I think a part of me knew that I still had something left to give in skating. And my coach at that point, he said very similar things. He didn't actually say it to me, but we've had to talk about it when I actually went to him 4 years later and said, I don't think I can do this anymore.
Yeah.
And when I told him that 4 years later, he looked at me and he was like, well, you know what? That's your choice. You've literally done everything the sport could ask you to do right now. You have your medals from Olympics. You won worlds. Like, it's your choice if you want to come back. And he's like, 4 years before that, when I got injured, he said he was close to saying the exact same thing. He was like, if you want to come back, I'll be here to help you. But if you don't, that's fine. You've already made an Olympics. You've already got a national medal. You've accomplished a lot. Like, you don't have to feel like you need to get more. But he felt like I could give more. So both of us in that moment kind of just said, well, you know what? We'll push through. We'll see what happens. And I did that for a year, not being able to compete. And I just was training, which is my least favorite part of skating. And he started sending me back to Newfoundland and across Canada to do some shows and seminars just to keep my motivation up a little bit higher. But then I went back to competition the next year, and it was a full roller coaster. I either skated really well or really badly. There was no in between. But ultimately, it wasn't my performance that led to me making a decision, but it was my mentality going towards each event. I was training fine. I could do everything in practice. But the minute I got to competition, I got nervous for the first time. I lost full confidence in myself. There was a lot of things mentally going on that I couldn't compete well and consistently because my own brain was getting in the way. So when I didn't make the world team that year, I came third and the top two made it. I looked at my coach and I was like, we're 2 years out from the Olympics. I can either quit right now because this sucks. I'm not having fun. Or I can recover from these 2 years and put 2 more solid competitive years under my belt and be happy with how I'm done. So in that moment, we chose to start working with a sports psychologist just to help me get through the mental blocks that I had, the fears that I had, but then also just a chance to rant about my daily life and a chance to bash my coach if I wanted to, or talk about my parents and just get it out so it's not sitting in your brain. And it's a safe place to say it. And a lot of it you probably don't even mean, but you just got to get it out. So it's just a lot more freedom that way, and it helped so much. And it was able that when I got onto the ice to compete, I could just focus on what I was doing.
Do you look back now at 27 being retired? And I still think that's kind of weird to say because it's like you're still young. But do you look back now and you're kind of like, yeah, absolutely, I'm glad I kind of stuck it out? Or do you kind of be like, I don't give a
I don't know. I don't really look back and I try not to look back.
How dare you always look back? Look back at what you accomplished.
I don't know. I've only just recently started looking at my Olympic stuff and becoming appreciative I've always appreciated it. So once again, wording some things is weird. I've always appreciated what I've done, what I've accomplished, but it's only recently that I've been able to look at my Olympic stuff and acknowledge, I guess, like how big that was and how rare it is to do something like that. And then I actually put in a lot of work for it. Like, that is really finally just starting to hone in, and I'm realizing that. But I try not to look back too much. And when it goes back to that injury, I don't know. I don't know what would have happened if I just stopped right then and there. I probably would still have metal in my leg because I wouldn't have been shoving my foot in my skate. So I took the metal out because of that reason. So I probably would have still had metal in my leg. I probably would have been done school
sooner.
Done like 3 programs in school at this point instead of just starting again. So I don't know where I would be. My friends were just retired from skating that year too. They're going into their second year of university. Maybe I would have joined them sooner instead of them moving on and they're all done and getting their jobs and having children. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in school. Woo.
Okay.
So I don't know where I would have been, but then at the same time, I look back and I'm like, I learned so much in my last couple of years. Um, I learned a lot about myself in my own skating. I met a lot more people. Some of them are my new best friends, and I gained like this whole new community that I never had it before that because I was so young at my first Olympics when I got injured. Um, so it's just like I built more than just the accomplishments in those 4 years, and that I don't really want to hold back from.
Yeah, that's fair. It's good. I
Mhm.
think it's interesting because like when you mentioned about like going to, because listen, if you stumble across things on Instagram long enough, you'll see inspirational quotes. You're like, yeah, I'm going to do this today. And then you'll see stuff where it's like, are you depressed? Like, I guess, like, I don't know who defines that anymore. But
Mhm.
I think it's interesting because if you stumble across Instagram and then you see, I think one of the ones that I really like watching is someone saying you can't compare like your highlight reel to someone else's like low life, or like just because someone else is like posting all their highs. Like, no one's out there posting their lows. No one is. So you're comparing like your
People
order,
are
like,
starting to, which
yeah.
makes me
Oh yeah.
happy.
Yeah. Well, I feel like
Mhm.
it's still like an open road because you're kind of exposing yourself on social media where it's like, oh, this happened today. It's like, yeah, good for you. You deserve it. You're like, I deserve a flat tire? Like, what kind of monster are you? But I do enjoy with social media, like sometimes it can really amp you up, sometimes it can bring you down, but it kind of in a way is a little bit of a healthy medium to yourself where like I know you said like at this stage you're going back to school and sometimes you're like I'm a little bit too old to be in school. I remember graduating from Carleton with this degree. I'm going to still use it with this degree and being like, I'm ready for the world. And then you go out and do internships. So like, you're not ready, buddy. You're not ready. I'm like, what do you mean? Like I'm old. I'm not old. I'm young. I'm ready. Let's do this. And they're like, nah, you need more experience. I'm like, by the time I get all the experience you want me to be, I'm going to be 40. And they're like, what's wrong with being 40? I'm just like, nothing. Then there's like a 40-year-old in the back that's like, the news anchor of this big station. I'm like, all right, I'll see myself out. But I mean, it doesn't matter. At the point I'm looking at it is like if you're gaining more experience to something you want to do as a post career, then who cares what other people think or say or where they're to in life? Because again, if you're comparing yourself to someone else's life, it's like I don't know. Sometimes I look at my brothers and I'm like, one brother has kids, and one's like up away in Ottawa and has a pretty decent house, and I'm just like, what the fuck am I doing? And then I'm just like, oh right, I interviewed like Tim Allen, so can you do that? And then they're just like, well, I wanted to interview Tim Allen. Like, there we go, everyone's happy for everybody.
Mhm.
It's a long way to say be happy. Could have just played the song.
It is.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different journey, and that's like what I said. I want to be a part of the media world for that reason, is to be able to tell people stories the way that they want their stories to be told, to get their highlight reels, but then also to get the real stuff behind it all.
Yeah.
And everybody has a different journey. Today I was in a class with someone that I was definitely the younger one in that situation. Whereas last semester I was in a group project, and one of my group members was like, he was in his 4th year and I was in my 1st year,
Yeah.
and he was like, you went to your first Olympics when I was in grade 7. And I'm just like, I know I'm old.
Yeah.
So it's like,
You shut up.
yeah. So sometimes I get tossed into it. I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, I am late, really, not really late, but I'm later than most of my classmates when starting school. But at the same time, I just lived a whole career up to that
Yeah.
point, and then took a break, and now restarting my new career. So, um, even if I don't get a job in this field when I'm done, I can say that I accomplished something else. I accomplished my skating career, then I can say I'm accomplishing my school career, and then we'll figure it out from there. Um, but at the same time, I also have learned through skating and my post career that it's not always as simple as saying I went to school and now I have a job.
Yeah.
It's to say I finished school, I have the degree, I put in the work. Now, if it works, it works. If not, and I'll just figure it out from there again. But yeah.
I like that. I like that. So listen, if we're ever in a competition for a job, I don't think we should be, but if we are, and you end up getting it, I'll be like, you know what? She has the degree. I'm cool with that. And someone's just like, man, that sounds hypocritical from what you said in the past. Like, no, I just don't like ex-athletes walking in and getting a job. If they did the work, like, that we had to do to like, get the job that we're supposed to be trained for, told, clear, plain field in some cases. But do you ever find that though at university, like, or a college, that you have people in your group or group members that are like, hey, it's like you're Kaetlyn Osmond, and you're just still like, can you just not? Because I feel like it's like a Hannah Montana vibe almost. Like I know that's a little bit different, but I feel like, you know, when Hannah Montana comes out and someone's just like, oh my God, you're Hannah Montana. It's like, yeah, but I just want to be Miley. It's like, in this case, it's like, I just want to be Kaetlyn, not the Olympic.
My hair's not showing it right now, but currently, if I do my hair correctly, I look like I'm in my Hannah Montana days.
Yeah.
Or not right now. We're thriving off a really messy ponytail. Back to school life.
Yeah.
But I don't really feel like, not many people at my school know who I am. I don't talk to many people. I'm very quiet, actually, for how much I talk to people on a daily basis, whether it's through podcast or last week I was at Nationals broadcasting, or being a part of the broadcast team for Skate Canada throughout the year. I don't talk to people. I very much stick to myself when I'm in classes. But then when I do have the chance to talk to people, it's not the first thing I bring up.
Yeah, fair.
If the conversation goes around sports, which it often does, because I'm in media, majority of the people in my media class have something to do with sports. So if it comes up in their conversation about what sport you do, or last semester I was in a French class, and one of the guys works at the same rink that I do, so we knew each other from that.
Yeah.
And nobody actually asks about it. There's no questions about what it was like. There's no questions about like, what are you doing here now? It's just like, oh, cool, you did that, and then they're over it. Like, nobody cares.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which is like great, but at the same time, I'm like, can someone care? But nobody cares.
I feel
They're
like
just like, whatever.
I feel like if we were in the same program, and this is like, I don't know how you'd feel about this answer, but if we were in the same like sports program or journalism program, my instant reaction would not be the Olympics. It would not be about skating. I'd just be like, what are you at? You understand me, right? And then they'd be like,
I got it.
Yeah, they'd be like, why is that your go-to? I'd be like, listen, Mainlander, you're not a part of this anymore. Me and Kaetlyn are going to go talk new feet. And they'd be like, can we join? It's like, no, this is the one thing we have. Let us be.
That's going to do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to Kaetlyn Osmond for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening, and good night.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.